What if the question isn't whether what we do is right or wrong, but whether anything we do in this reality matters at all? This is Inception, a story about layers of truth, layers of guilt, and layers of meaning. Hi, Theo here, and I'm here to perform a narrative autopsy, to understand why Inception works or doesn't and how we can achieve such a story. Stage 1. World Introduction. Rules that lie to you. In Inception, the world is built like a machine, a layered, self-referential architecture where physics and psychology merge. Christopher Nolan might classify this world as a quest narrative. The hero must journey through obstacles to retrieve something transcendent. But Nolan twists this structure. The world itself becomes the obstacle. The rules seem clear. One dream level is more like 5 minutes that feel like an hour. Death wakes you up, and totems reveal truth. But Nolan immediately destabilizes these rules through emotional logic. Mal appears where she should not, gravity changes without warning, and time stretches inconsistently. What Nolan did here is basically get the world established primarily and add variation and instability, therefore continuously generating a feeling of uncertainty to the basic notions. This approach aligns with Jonathan Gottschall's argument in The Storytelling Animal. Humans accept worlds that feel emotionally coherent, even if they break logical coherence. Dream physics isn't physics at all. It's emotional. The world bends around Cobb's guilt, not around gravity. May not make much sense at first, but it works. With this in mind, we build our first layer of reality, the world rule. Emotional truth overrides physical truth. The world is built to reflect internal conflict, not external reality. Stage 2. Character engine. Desire shapes reality. Why do we trust a character that spends the entire movie basically shifting and manipulating truth? According to McKee, every story begins with design. Cobb's want is simple: get home to his children. But his need, the deeper emotional necessity, is to confront the guilt he refuses to admit to. In Propp's terminology, Cobb is the embodiment of a tragic hero. He believes he's the hero, he behaves like a false hero. The character also fits quite well within Campbell's Monomyth. We have the first step, which is the call to adventure, Saito's job offer. Cobb's journey begins with a temptation disguised as opportunity. Saito offers him something no one else can, a chance to return home and clear his name. This is the inciting incident because Cobb's want to go home to his children is activated, and his need to confront his guilt is triggered indirectly. Saito becomes the supernatural aid of the Monomyth, a figure who offers the impossible. What makes this powerful is that Cobb doesn't accept the call for noble reasons. He accepts it out of fear of losing his family forever, and out of desperation, which already cracks open his psychological armor. Step number 2. Crossing the threshold and assembling the team. The team Cobb builds isn't just functional, each member reflects a fractured aspect of Cobb's psyche. Arthur, which is equal to structure, is Cobb's rational mind, the part that clings to rules. Ariadne, which is curiosity or empathy, represents Cobb's repressed desire to understand himself. She becomes the architect of his subconscious. Eames, or the fluid identity, embodies the fluidity of memory and truth. He literally becomes other people. In Yusuf, that equals instability. He brings chemical instability that mirrors Cobb's emotional instability. Each member highlights parallel and contradictions to Cobb. They represent pieces of what he once was and what he's trying not to confront. Crossing the threshold into the mission is symbolic. Cobb moves from the real world into constructed realities, signaling the collapse of his emotional boundaries. Step 3. The descent into the underworld, the dream layers. Entering the dreams is not just a heist mechanic, it's a descent into Cobb's psychological underworld. Dream layers equal stages of internal confrontation. Each level represents a barrier, a suppressed memory, a defensive structure of the subconscious, a step deeper into his guilt. This is where Cobb becomes vulnerable, because the deeper he goes, the less control he has, and the more Mal appears as a narrative antagonist. The underworld in Campbell's framework is where a hero faces death. For Cobb, that's emotional death. Step 4. Atonement, confronting Mal. This is the heart of the Monomyth, the moment where the hero must confront the force that holds power over them. For Cobb, Mal is not just a memory, she is the embodiment of guilt, failure, his inability to accept truth, and his fear of being the villain. Atonement requires Cobb to acknowledge, I planted an idea that destroyed the person I loved. This is the real heist of the story, not planting Inception into Fisher, but extracting denial from himself. And step 5, return, choosing whether reality matters. Campbell's return usually shows the hero bringing newfound wisdom back to the real world, but Nolan subverts it. Cobb's return is ambiguous, because the question becomes, does emotional truth matter more than empirical truth? Whether the top falls or not is irrelevant. What matters is Cobb's transformation. He stops looking at the totem, he stops seeking external validation. He embraces the emotional world he wants, even if it's just another dream. The return becomes philosophical, not factual. Nolan seems to have taken this known structure and fractured it to symbolize Cobb's own fractured psyche. It seems like this is my second video overall, both having DiCaprio acting and both highlighting his tormented psyche. Seems to be quite a pattern, isn't it? Now, why do we follow Cobb into such a complex, layered, fantastical reality? First, it could be because we're just mesmerized by the way DiCaprio is playing, but that's not necessarily a narrative structural element, so I can't really focus on it. But second, it goes to authority heuristic, again a recurring element for heroes in the videos. He speaks in confidence. He explains the rules, he leads the team, so intuitively, we hope that he knows what he's doing, no? Although every fact further down the line showcases how much of an unstable narrator he is. Our second layer of the movie structure shows now the characters that embody and manifest the world they live in. Their actions and reactions are in coherence with the world they belong to. The way they move, the way they talk, the way they negotiate situations, they seem to fit into the world that we built previously. And to top it up, their behaviors are in close contact with how the world of Inception behaves as well. Quite a strong dynamic. Stage 3. The plot engine. How to structure story inside the story, inside the story, inside the story, inside the story, inside the story. How do you stack multiple realities without collapsing the entire narrative? Nolan built Inception like a nested algorithm. Each dream level is both a setting and a reflection of a character's subconscious state. This is where the film somehow never gets confusing to the point where you don't want to watch it anymore. It has a set of established rules for all layers, and no matter how intricate they get, they have a thread one can follow to gain coherence. In McKee's terms, each layer presents a larger gap, a greater distance between what the character wants and what the dream world delivers. We can be looking at level 1, security and resistance. Fisher's security forces literalize the human instinct to defend against intrusion. This level represents the mind's surface defenses. And why does it matter? It externalizes Fisher's internal resistance, it mirrors Cobb's denial, he also resists confronting truth, and it sets physical stakes for the mission. This is the ego, the conscious mind pushing back. Level 2, psychological tension. The hotel level is full of manipulation, lies, deception, and distorted physics. It reflects the subconscious negotiating with itself. Why it matters? Cobb's leadership falters as Mal begins to intrude. Fisher's subconscious becomes more personal. Time distortion intensifies tension. This level demonstrates how fragile manufactured reality is, especially under emotional pressure. This is the subconscious wrestling with conflicting narratives. Level 3, emotional suppression. The Snow Fortress represents deep emotional fortification, the buried trauma and belief systems we lock away. And why does it matter? It symbolizes Fisher's deepest childhood wound, it parallels Cobb's repression of Mole's death, and it breaks into the fortress to create a symbol of breaking emotional barriers. This level equals the unconscious, the part of the mind that is hardest to access but holds the deepest truth. And the last one we have is Limbo, the pure guilt. Limbo is unconstructed subconscious architecture, a wasteland shaped only by memory and emotion. Why does it matter? It is where Cobb built a world with Mal. It is where he accidentally committed the emotional crime he cannot forgive. And it is where the truth resides that Cobb fears most. Limbo equals primordial grief. Limbo equals the truth stripped of structure. Limbo equals the origin of Inception, and Limbo equals the prison Cobb built for himself. This is the core of the story's psychological architecture. These layers escalate simultaneously. This is synchronized rising action, one of the hardest things I've ever seen being pulled off, and worked. Now, why do audiences follow an X amount of timelines and still don't get lost? Because of our coherence bias. Our brains look for the simplest, most structured version of events. Nolan intentionally aligns emotional stakes with structural stakes, so every layer feels like one of those stories within other stories, therefore creating some sort of cohesion between parallel realities. We now add the plot rule to the framework. nested conflicts must escalate in parallel. The story becomes a multi-threaded emotional machine. You can't leave some parts of the story underdeveloped whilst some get to a much further point. Stage 4. Climax and transformation. The ending isn't a twist. Is the ending a test for reality or a test for us? At the climax, Cobb confronts Mal. This moment is pure Aristotle, a combined reversal and recognition. Reversal is a sudden turn where an action's outcome becomes its opposite. As an example, you can try to save someone that leads to their own doom, while recognition is a shift from ignorance to knowledge, a crucial moment of revelation about identity or truth. Cobb realizes that Mal is not the villain, but his memory of her is. Gottschall says something very interesting about this, that us, as humans, tend to complete incomplete stories. We put the data together that we have at hand and try to tie it all together either by true information or by speculation. It's very hard for us to accept and live with a story that we haven't at least superficially tied together. The ending of Inception is designed as a psychological mirror. In Inception, if you value emotional resolution, the top of the story falls. If you value logical resolution, the top spins. The point really isn't about whether reality is real, but that Cobb just seems to have given up or no longer cares. He walks away from the top, symbolizing the moment he stops seeking external validation. We add now the climax rule to the structure, the emotional truth that is the real resolution. Ambiguity reveals characters, not the plot. Stage 5. Symbolism and cinematic language. Design as narrative psychology. If dreams are made of emotion, why does Nolan use architecture? Dreams in Inception look realistic because the subconscious hides in the familiar. Nolan grounds dreams in physics to make them believable, but the symbols are emotional triggers. If we're looking for examples, we can start with the totems, which are identity anchors, the trains that symbolize invasive guilt, elevators that are basically memory hierarchy, mirrors that symbolize self-reflection, paradox stairs that are basically impossible truths, rain that equals subconscious anxiety, limbo that's unprocessed trauma. These symbols create a visual dictionary for Cobb's psyche. We're now gonna add the symbol rule to the main structure. Every object is a metaphor for the character's internal conflict. Stage 6. The practical takeaways. How to build a story like Inception? What can you learn from one of the most complex stories ever written? Here we have some of the core elements. 1. Build your world as a metaphor. World rules should reflect an emotional truth, not necessarily physics. The world can help you put the audience into a spot where certain mental conditions or actions seem plausible. 2. Give your protagonist a flaw that destabilizes the plot. In Inception, Cobb's guilt is the story's central antagonist. Choose a flaw that becomes the ultimate obstacle. Something that the main character has to overcome or accept or deal with. Something that they can't avoid anymore because it's inside them. 3. Use nested conflicts with synchronized escalation. All parts of the story should develop in parallel. If one stays incipient and the others are moving fast forward, a strong level of "what have those been doing in the meantime" appears in the audience, therefore affecting trust. Step 4. Building a symbolic dictionary that reinforces narrative psychology. Certain realities you try to achieve are complex, and if notions are hard to remember, trinkets can help by having a charged meaning. You see something, you know it means something. Now, stage 7. Conclusion. Inception works because it aligns classical story plots that we resonate with and uses a new interpretation. The core values are those we can understand and relate to because they're human, but uses a different interpretation, the one of shifting reality itself into surrealism. It's not a puzzle to solve. It's a psychological portrait built from structure, desire, guilt, and possibility. It's as if, instead of trying to describe how you feel with sentiments and words, you'd try to use architectural urban elements. Imagine, instead of saying you're depressed, you'd say that you feel like a brutalist building that's not been refurbished or inhabited in the last 50 years. It has a picture that we can somehow subconsciously understand. With all that being said, I'm Theo, and this has been Narrative Autopsy. Until we meet again.